Hello everyone, I thought of explaining really the idea behind Linux bridging. Now this is a theoretical video. We will not be implementing a Linux bridge, I'll just be explaining the theoretical part behind it. So first of all, what is a Linux bridge? It's a virtual switch that exists on your computer. So keep this in mind, it's a virtual switch. It's a switch. Switch can forward packets based on MAC addresses. So to give an example, let's say we have multiple computers, computer 1, computer 2, computer 3, and these 3 computers are connected to a switch. So this is another computer, which is a switch, another server, whatever. This is a device, we call it switch. This device is connected to a router, which will route traffic to other networks. So I'm just going to put here a huge line, and this is the internet, the outer world, the cloud. So these 3 machines are in the same network. So this is the network. So as you can see over here, this is the network that these 3 devices, these 3 computers are part of. When this computer here tries to communicate with another computer that exists in this network, the switch gonna know it and going to forward the data, the packets to that specific computer. And vice versa, of course. And it does know which computer to forward the packets to by looking into the MAC address. Each of these computers will have a network interface, and each of these network interfaces will be corresponding to a specific MAC address. And the switch can know that this computer exists in this network, and this MAC address is connected to a specific port, Ethernet port on the switch. So with this idea in mind, virtual switches or Linux bridges acts the same exact way. Now this is the idea of a switch. This is a general switch. So let's delete some of these and redraw other parts. Now as you can see, I have drawn a computer here that encapsulates the switch, the computer 1, computer 2, and computer 3. Now these computers, let's imagine they are virtual machines running inside the computer 0. So computer 0 will have an interface, let's call it Ethernet 0 for instance, and each of these computers will have a virtual interface. Let's call it, for example, let's call it VN1. So each of these computers will have its own virtual interface, small virtual interface connected to it, and this huge computer, which encapsulates all of them, so it encapsulates computer 1, computer 2, computer 3, and itself, it has an actual physical network interface, Ethernet 0. Now when traffic comes from the internet or any place really to this Ethernet interface, it really goes to the switch, Linux bridge. The switch now becomes a Linux bridge, a virtual switch. And the switch must know to which computer it should forward to. For example, if the packet is for a computer with MAC address 0, it will forward it to this computer. If it's to MAC address 1 of computer 1, it will forward it to this network interface. If it's for MAC address for computer 2, it will forward it to the virtual network interface of computer 2, and so on and so forth. So this switch over here, this virtual switch, which is a service, an application running inside computer 0, the host computer, the main computer, will be actually doing the same exact work of an external switch, of a physical switch. However, this is virtualized, and this is a software that mimics the behavior of a real switch. Now this is the main idea of Linux bridging. Now let me expand this for a minute, and because we will be explaining a little bit in detail some areas, so let me delete this cloud. And let's say that I have some computer here. Okay, so this is a computer, and I want to forward network traffic, for example a HTTP request, to one of these computers, so either computer 1, 2, or 3. Now of course, if this computer is forwarding or sending a request to any of these computers, it has to write the IP of that specific computer. So for example, we have 192.168.1.1.2. This IP address, let's say, will correspond to the computer 2, to this specific computer, running inside the C0, which is expecting traffic to go through Ethernet 0, physical Ethernet 0. So when this computer sends a request with this IP address, first of all, of course, it goes through the router, the gateway for this network, which is a huge router, of course. And let's draw the boundaries of the router. So this is the router. This will see, okay, this is coming to this network exists here in this place. So when this computer sends a request to this network, to this computer, which is the 192.168.1.2, which corresponds to computer 2, virtual machine 2, running inside computer 0, it will go through the router, and the router will change the destination MAC address to this specific computer 0, because this computer 0, when it's connected to the router will have 3 MAC addresses corresponding to this specific port over here. It will have actually 4 MAC addresses for this specific port over here. For this specific Ethernet connection, it will have 4 MAC addresses. So it will check which computer corresponds to this IP address. It will put the destination MAC address of that computer and will send the data to the Ethernet 0. The Ethernet 0, of course, is connected to the switch, which is a Linux bridge. The Linux bridge checks which MAC address is being used, and it forwards the data to that specific computer with that specific MAC address. And that's really it, in simple terms. So it's just a virtual switch. It's a switch running inside your computer, and it acts as a middleman between your host machine and the virtual machines and the Ethernet, the physical, real Ethernet. So it just literally stands right behind the Ethernet before the host machine really interprets the packet. It takes the packet, it checks if it's for the host machine or for another virtual machine, and just forwards the packet to that virtual machine. And if it's for the host machine, it just forwards that to the network stack of the host machine. And that's literally it. Now, if you have more questions, just let me know. Thank you very much, and I hope this was useful. If you want to know anything more about specific areas, specific topics, please let me know, and have a nice day. Goodbye.